Hi, welcome to the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle podcast. My name is Sarah Connolly and I'm an alcohol-free lifestyle coach. In this episode, we're going to talk about the withdrawal from alcohol. It's a common concern for people who drink on a regular basis, and it's often the piece that tends to deter us from taking steps to either reduce or remove alcohol completely. Withdrawal can be an extremely serious thing for people who are suffering from extreme alcohol use disorder. And so if that is you, then I highly encourage you to seek some medical assistance. But in this episode, we're going to talk about withdrawal in the context of somebody who can comfortably remove alcohol for at least 3 days without experiencing shakes and tremors and any other extreme negative consequences. Alcohol withdrawal is the symptoms that occur when somebody who has an alcohol dependency suddenly stops or reduces their alcohol consumption. And the reason that it happens is because the brain and the body have become accustomed to alcohol in the system. And when it's removed, it has a reaction. It makes sense because alcohol is a highly toxic and addictive substance that plays a crucial role in changing many of the key structures in the brain and also from a psychological perspective. When we remove something that we've been relying on for a long period of time, it has negative impacts across the board. The common symptoms of alcohol withdrawal can be mild to severe, starting with feelings of anxiety and unrest, general discomfort in the body, just feeling flat and low. And at the more extreme end, people may experience excessive sweating, nausea, insomnia, and potentially even hallucinations and seizures. The severity of these symptoms varies depending on a number of factors, including how much you've been drinking, how long you've been drinking, and your overall health in general. So alcohol withdrawal can be dangerous, especially when it's severe, and it can pose a serious threat to our health and well-being. So as I mentioned earlier, if you feel that your alcohol dependence is severe, it's really important that you seek medical supervision and support. But if you are feeling like you've given up before, you've had weeks or months off alcohol, and you feel like you can go at least 2 or 3 days without experiencing any serious symptoms, then there is an opportunity to safely withdraw from alcohol. I'd also add at this point that many of the withdrawal symptoms that can come up as a result of removing alcohol are very similar to the experiences that we have when we are drinking. So there is an opportunity to look at withdrawal as just a period of time that you have to go through, which perhaps won't be dissimilar to your experience of drinking. The only difference is that you may not be experiencing the excessive and unnatural highs from your drinking that you're used to. So I'll talk now a bit about something called pause. Pause is what's known as post-acute withdrawal symptom. And it's the symptoms as a result of brain problems, dysfunctions that are caused by the brain readjusting to being without alcohol. Recovery from pause takes somewhere between 6 months to 2 years. And again, the severity of the symptoms will very much depend on how long and how much you've been drinking. But some early symptoms that you may experience are things like the inability to think clearly. As the brain starts to heal, it takes a little while to get the clarity that you've been missing for so long. It may also affect your memory and mean that you are perhaps a little more forgetful than usual. There may be a tendency for emotional overreactions. Now, again, I would add that these are also symptoms of drinking alcohol. So it's not like you are moving into a stage that you haven't already been experiencing for a very long period of time. You're just doing it with a better end goal, which is long-term health, as well as overall life satisfaction, more joy, better relationships. Basically, these are short-term pains for long-term gains. In the first 7 to 10 days, as the body removes alcohol, Many people complain about sleep disturbances. Again, these are completely normal and will start to address themselves over the course of the first month. The other thing that can also happen for people is that they feel that they have a higher sensitivity to stress. Now, this makes sense because in the past, whenever we would feel stressed or anxious, we would drink. So we had an immediate response or immediate solution, should I say, to those feelings of high stress and anxiety. When we remove alcohol, we notice these things a lot more because they last a bit longer, because we are not immediately trying to suppress them or push them down by drinking. Again, if we do this over a period of time and we stick with it, those feelings of stress and anxiety will lessen more and more over time. So let's take a look in more detail at some of those symptoms and what we can do to help ourselves through them. Firstly, with the inability to think clearly, we may find that we're having problems concentrating. We have loop thinking, circular thinking, where we're thinking about the same thing over and over again. Solutions for the short term are to limit the amount of time you spend on any one task and try and keep that time to a minimum of around 15 to 20 minutes, keeping that time to a maximum of around 15 to 20 minutes. When you start to feel like your concentration problems are improving, you can start to increase the time. And in terms of these circular thinking cycles, it's really important to break the cycle. This is an easy thing to do by simply changing your state. Ways of doing that are things like calling a friend, putting on some music that you really enjoy, or taking some exercise. When it comes to memory loss and feeling like you're more and more forgetful, it's important here to apply some self-compassion and kindness and a sense of reality to the situation. Give yourself the permission to not be able to remember things at times. And if you're really finding it's a severe problem, just let your friends know. This is something that's happening for you right now, but it will be resolved in time. Frequent mood swings are also a symptom of post-acute withdrawal symptoms. So again, when we remove a substance that we've been relying on to suppress or regulate our emotions, it stands to reason that when we no longer have that, we are going to start feeling more. We are going to start having stronger feelings and reactions to things because we're not numbing out anymore. So just recognizing this is the first thing to do. Notice when you're starting to feel uncomfortable, dysregulated, where you start to feel emotions coming up that you're really not sure what to do with. And again, apply a sense of compassion and realism to the situation. You are doing something that is extremely challenging at times, and you're doing it for a very valid reason. And if we can talk to ourselves in that way, it tends to reduce those intense feelings that we are not used to feeling and not comfortable with. Noticing as well when we are reacting disproportionately to the events that happen around us, it's always helpful to have at least one or two people that you can talk to. People that you feel comfortable with, people that perhaps have already gone through this process, mainly so that you don't feel like you're going crazy, because that is also a symptom of pause. We are starting to reconnect with what it feels like to be a regular human being, dealing with everything that life throws at us without trying to escape or mask or numb. And this is something that you should be very, very proud of trying to accomplish. Once our brain systems come back into balance, all of the things that previously might have tipped us over the edge actually just seem like normal, everyday things. But we must go through this hard period in order to get to the other side. The good news is that whilst we will always have in life experiences where we feel more emotional and more reactive than others, those times will get less and less. And as time goes on, we'll become more and more effective and efficient at managing our emotions. One thing that tends to frustrate people in the early days of removing alcohol is that they experience sleep disturbances. When we're drinking alcohol, whilst alcohol can appear to help us sleep, what it actually does is take us straight from being awake into a deep sleep state. And we miss, some of the most critical parts of our sleep, including the rapid eye movement stage. But when we don't sleep, we feel terrible. And if we're conscious that we're not sleeping, we feel even worse. And tiredness is a real catalyst for people going back to drinking. So know that in the early days, if you're experiencing sleep disturbances, it's completely normal and it won't last. Symptoms can include finding it hard to fall asleep, finding it hard to stay asleep, and changes in your sleep patterns. So make sure that you're conscious that this is just part of the process. Ways that you can help yourself in these situations is to set a regular bedtime. Routine is so important when it comes to getting ourselves back on track and resetting our natural homeostasis or balance, if you like. See if you can try to go to bed at the same time or at least sort of a half an hour either side. What that does is it teaches our body to get back into a routine. And once our bodies do something on a regular basis, they start to feel a lot more comfortable and a lot more relaxed. So regular bedtimes is very, very useful. Try not to eat too soon before you go to bed, so at least 2 hours before you get into bed. Another great technique is to practice breathing before you go to bed. There are so many apps now available that have nighttime breathing routines, and it doesn't need to be anything long. It can simply be a 5-minute or even 3-minute practice, whether it's a short meditation or simply just a breathing exercise that will calm your nervous system and allow you to settle more gently into your sleep. There are also certain things that you can try, supplements like magnesium. Epsom salts is really helpful, having a long hot bath in Epsom salts. Tart cherry juice, apparently, I've not tried it, but that's also supposed to be really helpful for sleep. And the skin of a kiwi fruit. So I heard this recently and did some research, and apparently it contains melatonin. And so if you're up for it, you can try the skin of a kiwi fruit before you go to bed. As we've been using alcohol to deal with stress, it stands to reason that when we remove it, we start to feel those stresses more intensely. We're also stressed because we're trying to give up alcohol, and that creates a whole level of stress in and of itself. So again, noticing consciously, mindfully, and with compassion that what you're trying to do is extremely important, but also extremely challenging, and giving yourself the grace to perhaps be more reactive than you would normally be, and giving yourself the time that you need in order to learn how to apply new skills and techniques to stress management. Certain things that you may wish to explore include mindfulness and meditation. People often have a certain reaction to the idea of meditation, with the stereotypical image of somebody sitting for hours at a time staring at their navel. This is, of course, not what we're talking about. Our attention span and our ability to be still is highly compromised, especially in the early days of removing alcohol. So find something that works for you. I highly recommend it, even though you may have resistance, to simply giving it a try. Find a 2, 3, 4-minute meditation online, on YouTube, or in an app, and notice how you feel before you do it. Then do the activity and notice how you feel afterwards. You may find that a simple practice of breathing in and out for 1 minute changes how you feel in your physical body and your mental body. I strongly recommend these practices because they absolutely do make a difference, and that's coming from personal experience, but also from so much research now, which tells us that if we can simply take short bursts of calm throughout the day, what happens is we lower our stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. And if we can do it at regular intervals throughout the day, when we finish our day, we're not in this high stressed state from having gone all out full stop for the 8 hours prior. And we're not at that heightened stress state where we feel the need to drink at the end of the day.
James Swanwick here. Just a quick interruption to share some of the relationship breakthroughs that folks have been having inside of our Project 90 Stop Drinking process. Joe Worley from Michigan says, my wife has the real Joe back. Andrus from Minnesota says, I'm a better dad. Dave Kelly from Australia says, I feel so much more connected to friends, family, and colleagues. And Angela, also from Australia, says, I'm spending more time with my kids. So if improving your relationships is your motivation or one of your motivations for stopping drinking and you would like some professional outside support, I invite you to go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/project90, watch the video, read some of the words on the page, learn about our process, and if it feels like it could be for you, you're welcome to schedule a free 15-minute complimentary call with one of our coaches. All right, let's get back to the episode.
Self-soothing is critical when it comes to being able to teach our bodies how to deal with stress. Many people who struggle with addiction struggle with the ability to self-soothe. And what I mean by that is the ability to stop and calm ourselves down internally as opposed to looking externally for some quick fix. Alcohol being obviously the go-to option for so many of us. Things like taking a long bath, a cold shower, a walk, doing a couple of yoga poses. Another interesting technique which works from personal experience is screaming into your pillow. Grab your pillow and just scream for dear life. And you will notice afterwards that there is a certain level of satisfaction and calm and peace that comes over you. In the early days, do everything you can to minimize things that might stress you out. If possible, let people close to you know what you're doing, so that they are conscious and mindful that you may be a bit more reactive than normal because you are not drinking. You might also like to make a list of all the things that stress you out. Perhaps it's people, specific places, even words can stress us out, the way that someone speaks to us. The key is to gain awareness of these things, and once we're aware, we can start to be conscious of them and make the changes necessary. If you experience high stress or something happens that is unpredictable, which is common because life is unpredictable, then just keep bearing in mind why you are doing this. It's so easy in those moments of high stress to think, bugger it, I'm just going to have a drink, this is all too hard. In these moments, these practices become your tools. These practices to remind yourself that it is possible to relieve your stress in other ways. You don't need to drink this highly toxic, addictive substance, which ultimately is only going to make your stress worse. So to finish up with this episode, here are some simple, easy techniques that you can use that don't take up too much time, that can help you through the period of withdrawal. Firstly, I invite you to tell yourself on a regular basis that nothing is inherently wrong. Unless you are experiencing severe symptoms like tremors, hallucinations, and seizures, what's happening is nothing to worry about. This is just a result of removing alcohol. There's some negative things that will happen, difficult things that will happen, but they'll simply take a little bit of time to resolve. If you can get through the first 7 to 10 days, which you absolutely can, because many people do, then you will find things become a lot easier. So one of my favorite techniques, just to calm myself down when I'm feeling stressed and anxious, is to take about 1 to 3 minutes where I do some gentle inhales and exhales. On the inhale, I say I. On the exhale, am. On the inhale, here. And on the exhale, now. I am here now. You say that in your mind as you breathe in and out. And what it does is it helps to bring you back into the present moment. Stresses are normally related to things that have happened or things that we're afraid are going to happen. They are based in the past or based in the future. When we can bring ourselves into the present moment, we find that we have a lot more perspective and we can handle whatever is going on in that moment, which really is all that we need to handle. Everything that's past is finished and everything that's in the future is completely unpredictable. If you start to feel that you're overwhelmed and totally stressed out, see if you can change your environment. If you're able, just simply walk outside and look up at the sky, or take your shoes off and take a short walk on the grass. This will help to ground you. It will help to naturally soothe your nervous system so that you're moving out of fight or flight and into a more regulated state. It's amazing what simply shifting our focus can do. When we're stressed, we tend to have a very narrow, contracted focus and we're just thinking about our problems. If we can either change our state by moving to a different location, or if that's not possible, practicing the breathing, as I mentioned before, you will start to realize that the thing that you were turning to alcohol for, you yourself can resolve simply by noticing and then taking intentional action to relieve and self-soothe in a natural way. Distraction is also very, very helpful in the early days. So take yourself out somewhere that you've never been before, go watch a movie, put on your favorite music, decide to cook a meal that you've never cooked before, explore new drinks. There are many, many new alcohol-free drinks on the market now, and start to see this as an opportunity to expand your horizons. One of the other things that happens as a result of removing alcohol is that you find you will have a lot more time on your hands. And this can be a wonderful thing if you choose to use that time as a way of exploring what's possible for you, what's new, what's different, what other things you might enjoy in life, instead of simply sitting down on the couch with a beer or a wine and mindlessly watching television. I speak from personal experience. Other great quick fixes include things like if you have a pet, seeking out your pet and going and hanging out with your pet for a few moments. That is proven to calm the nervous system. Simply patting your dog or your cat can have a significant impact on the way that you feel. The trick is to find something that you enjoy or something that you feel a sense of anticipation towards. Once you do it once and you realize that it has a benefit, then that is incentive to do it again. In the same way that when we drink, we get pleasure from it, so our brain says do it again, we need to find alternative things that we get pleasure from so that the brain says, oh, I kind of like this too. I'll give that another go. So through this process, it is a period of compassion and kindness to yourself, understanding that you are making a brilliant change in your life, one that will have significant long-term benefits, and that in the short term, there needs to be a high level of awareness of what's going on, but no attachment to it. What I mean by that is that when things start to go wrong or we feel uncomfortable or unsettled, we tend to start making up stories about how this is not worth it. This is not going to work for me. I don't like it. I can't do it. And so I invite you to notice without expectations. Just notice what's happening for you, but try not to get hooked up into any stories around it. The only thing that you need to tell yourself is that it's completely normal and that it will pass, because it will and it does. The final technique that I will offer you is one that can be really powerful if we can really understand what it is that we need in those moments of high stress and anxiety or uncomfortable feelings as a result of not drinking anymore. If you're able, then it's very powerful to start to notice when you feel the discomfort and agitation in the body or even in the mind, and to stop and ask yourself, what do I need right now? You'll find oftentimes that you will get an answer. It will come from somewhere that perhaps you haven't spent much time listening to before. It may be that you need a sense of calmness and security and safety. It may be that you need to have some adventure and excitement. Find out what it is that you need at the deepest level, and then what you can do is draw on all your resources and ideas and creativity to find another way of meeting that need. Ultimately, this is what removing alcohol is all about. It's about identifying, what is it that I really need? What is it that I'm seeking in this moment? The obvious answer is alcohol, because it is the cure-all. Alcohol does relieve our stress and anxiety for the short term. It can make us feel excited and upbeat. So alcohol meets many of our fundamental human needs. It's just what we call a low quality way of meeting those needs. So as an exercise, if you're interested, you might like to take some time to think about the needs that alcohol was meeting for you. And once you've have your list, see if you can find some alternate ways of meeting those needs. Once we get very efficient at doing this, we find that our urges and cravings and desires for alcohol melt away over time. It's not because we don't want alcohol anymore, it's just that we choose healthier, happier, more sustainable ways of meeting our needs. So determination, patience, self-compassion, and realism are what is needed in the early days of withdrawing from alcohol. All of that ideally is underpinned by your reason why you're doing it, your motivations, your long-term goals. As we all know, alcohol is a very effective and seductive short-term fix for all of our problems. But unfortunately, the reality is it causes way more problems than it resolves. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. There are plenty of resources in the notes below the show. And if you're interested in learning more about the alcohol-free lifestyle programs, you can book a call with one of our coaches via the links. In the meantime, have a great rest of your day. And this is Sarah Connolly from the Alcohol-Free Lifestyle podcast.
James Swanwick here again. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I want to send you some free stuff. If you haven't yet got the Alcohol Freedom Formula, then you can get that at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. The YouTube channel is alcoholfreelifestyle.com/YouTube. I put out lots of educational videos on my Instagram page at James Swanwick. You can also find me on TikTok at James Swanwick. If this show has benefited you, I would so appreciate you leaving a review and giving it 5 stars. We have a 5-day no alcohol challenge, a 30-day no alcohol challenge. You can get details over at alcoholfreelifestyle.com. And if you would like to apply to be part of Project 90, which is our flagship process where you get a community, 7 coaching calls per week are available to you, a like-minded community, mostly folks in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, then you are welcome to apply. You can get all the details over at alcoholfreelifestyle.com/Project 90, and the details are in the show notes. Thank you again for listening. I will catch you on the next one.